First and foremost, a very, very warm welcome from all of us here at ARAG and indeed from Stephensons for joining us this morning for the first of our Talk to the Expert series. Today we'll be focusing on the exposures of the haulage sector post-COVID-19. So here's a quick look at what we're going to cover off today. As part of our business, and we're very proud of this, we don't own a law firm. What that allows us to do is to partner with people like Stephensons and really give that client the true feel of working with a specialist in order to make sure that they're represented to the best possible standard. So from our point of view, we've partnered with Stephensons for an awful long time. They are one of our specialists in the transport sector, which actually will lead me quite nicely into the next slide, and I'll be handing over to Paul. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be concentrating on the regulatory impact really of COVID-19. As you all know, the regulator for this is the Traffic Commissioner. So it's more about how the Traffic Commissioner has responded to COVID-19 and what that really means for operators, for your clients really. Given the far-reaching impact of COVID-19 on many industries, it's clear that a lot of the industries are being restricted massively. This does obviously have an impact on the ability to comply with the regulatory requirements for hauliers. What the Traffic Commissioners, in my view, have very helpfully done and very proactively done is looked at relaxing some of those requirements in the interim. The basic requirements for licensing haven't changed, but in effect, a proportionate, or the principle of proportionality really is being applied by Traffic Commissioners to allow temporary relaxation of operator licensing conditions. Bearing in mind changing priorities, allowing for a flexible approach to be adopted in the administration of the regulation of the functions of the Traffic Commissioner, which is always underpinned by the main aim, which is to ensure safety. Okay, so the relaxations, if you like, were initially implemented to offer support for essential services. We all have an idea of what they are. So in this particular sector, it will be for those involved in the delivery of food, for essential non-food such as personal care, household paper and cleaning, door-to-door refuse collection, health service and over-the-counter pharmaceuticals, fuel or essential utility services. So for those really it was important that relaxations were put into place to allow those to function in actually a heightened pressurised situation for them. It does have some overlap and some implications and benefits really for those in general in the haulage industry, those who are not necessarily as part of those essential services. And the Senior Traffic Commissioner recognised at the outset that there may be challenges for operators in meeting these requirements for the operator licensing conditions, and key considerations within this were undoubtedly considered where there was potential for personnel changes, for issues with economic activity having an impact on the business. And for those reasons really, the basic principles have been slightly adapted, albeit in the short term. The Traffic Commission's mission statement is there, which really just suggests that there needs to be a balance really between road safety, fair competition, efficient passenger and goods, in this particular instance, transport. Okay, so again, whilst the basic conditions of the licensing conditions haven't been changed in the sense that any have been taken out of the equation, some of them have been adapted. So initially, in relation to the impact it has on transport managers, that there is a clear implication there for transport managers, and the impact that has on an operator. Having a transport manager for a professional haulier, for a standard licensed operator is integral. It's a prerequisite, it's a condition. That is really to be able to demonstrate that there is the proper or requisite level of professional competence within that operation. So this recent crisis has obviously brought to light some areas of concern relating to temporary illness, relating to the issues surrounding furloughing, where there has been a normal situation of an operation which is effectively closed down. The argument is more simple. The Traffic Commissioner doesn't necessarily need to be engaged to grant what we call a period of grace to allow for the temporary stand down of a transport manager. Where the operation isn't operating, then the transport manager isn't expected to be in operation within that. There are issues with operations which have temporarily reduced their operations, so they're looking at potentially furloughing a transport manager but continuing an operation, and in those situations it has been necessary for an application for a period of grace to be made to the Traffic Commissioner. Driver's hours regulations can seem daunting, can seem quite easy to contravene for a number of people if you don't keep a close eye on them. It's integral that for a number of reasons, both regulatory and even for criminal implications, that these hours are adhered to, and they aren't bendable. In this instance, the Traffic Commission did issue some temporary guidance or some temporary relaxation to these rules on the 18th of March. They were actually withdrawn on the 14th of June after being extended from an April date, such is the impact that the pandemic has had. These measures, these relaxations, were really intended to provide relief to those operators who were providing emergency or necessary journeys, and it is necessary to be able to demonstrate to the Traffic Commission that any use of the relaxed regulations directly relinks to that sort of activity. So they need to be able to show that they were either providing goods or services to protect public health and or meeting theirs or others' basic needs for day-to-day living and or providing medical treatment. So effectively they need to be able to show that there's a risk to the life or health of people if the journey can't be carried out. Now without going into too much detail about the relaxation measures, some examples are that when looking at EU driver's hours rules, the replacement of EU daily driving limits of 9 hours has been increased to 11 hours, and then the reduction of daily rest requirements of 11 hours has been moved backwards to 9 hours. So they're effectively looking to be more flexible and less stringent on drivers and in turn operators to ensure that the emergency delivery of these services. One of the key issues when issuing the temporary guidance was the impact this might have economically on operators. It's clear here that this is something which is running through this industry certainly, but business in general. Financial standing is a requirement of an operator licensing system whereby you need to be able to demonstrate that you have necessary access to available and immediate financial resources to support the maintenance of vehicles and trailers during the operation. Okay, so in that instance, if that can't happen, then any changes must be notified to the Traffic Commissioner. In those situations, what would need to happen is an application for a period of grace. I've mentioned that term a couple of times now. And the period of grace is really for the Traffic Commissioner to take stock of your situation and decide whether to give any leeway where you can't comply with the basic requirements. So what's happened with financial standing is not that the requisite levels of finances that you're supposed to be able to demonstrate has been reduced, but what has happened is your ability to demonstrate that in some instances the Traffic Commissioners are given a period of grace, so given really an allowance for when there may be an economic downturn. Operators have to be able to meet certain requirements before that is accepted by the Traffic Commissioner. The key to all of this, you probably see, is that there has to be that level of communication with the Traffic Commissioner. There are certain instances where automatically you can take the lead when looking at the issued guidance, but the guidance is voluminous and it's frequent. So it's always best for your clients to be contacting the Traffic Commissioner's office directly to get assurances that way. It does remain crucial to comply with training requirements during this period. Like every regulated industry, there are continuing professional development requirements. There are often undertakings whereby an operator might need to comply with certain training by a certain date, and that undertaking may actually be stipulated on the licence or linked to the licence. There may also be an undertaking for outside auditing of the maintenance systems to be dealt with by a certain date. Now again, where that hasn't been possible due to the restrictions, what has to happen really is there needs to be that level of dialogue, that level of communication, as I was suggesting, with the Traffic Commissioner, to explain why that's not possible and ask for an extension where necessary. Moving forward, which we'll see shortly, the training has now been implemented and approved by the Traffic Commissioners so that it can be dealt with remotely and it can be dealt with online, which is something which has really moved this sector forward. Similarly, remote auditing, that's something that is now coming into play, and although there are certainly strict requirements for evidence to be produced to independent transport consultants for any auditing processes, there is a situation where that can be done remotely. Some other examples, without going into detail, are the ability for an exemption where there's a temporary unavailability of an operating centre for any reasons related to the pandemic, a temporary increase in vehicle authorisation, and temporary ability to operate for hire or reward. So where a restricted licence holder is looking to effectively operate as a standard licence holder, there are those measures in place where the Traffic Commissioner can grant those in the interim. What is going to be the new normal? Well, again, like most industries, we're still uncertain what post-COVID-19 will look like and actually when that will actually be. What we've seen in this particular sector is there has been an embracing of online technology with, for example, remote hearings having taken place. I personally took part in a remote case management hearing which was situated in Eastbourne and dealt with by way of Teams. It's similar to this. Went without issue, and I think we will see more and more hearings dealt with in that way. Traffic Commissioners, though, will still have a preference for face-to-face meetings and face-to-face hearings, and they have actually very recently been reinstated as of the 6th of July. We ourselves have some in the diary, but looking really in the coming months, how they will play out. I imagine not too dissimilar to how they were before, really, because for those of you who may know, Traffic Commissioners' hearing rooms are relatively spacious in any event. They're allocated to one specific hearing, so social distancing measures will be quite easily dealt with within those settings. For operators in general, I think the key message from all of this is that the changes have, I mentioned before, been voluminous, and they've also been frequent. It's more important than ever to stay vigilant and keep abreast of these changes, and to really have that level of communication with the Traffic Commissioner if they're concerned about not complying with any of the standard licensing conditions. Failing to do that, and failing to comply even with the temporary driver's hours relaxations that were implemented that are no longer in place, and anybody who hasn't complied with that during that period and has potentially breached issues, it's not necessarily over. We will see investigations in the future by DVSA. We will see it by the police. They are ongoing at the moment. So as well as regulatory action, people are leaving themselves open to action within the criminal courts.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was fantastic. There's an incredible amount of insight there and sector-specific expertise. But what a fantastic presentation that's been. So thank you all for joining us today. I'm sure you'll agree that it's been an incredibly worthwhile discussion around the implications for the haulage sector. And we do hope to see you on our next of the Talk to the Expert series. So that's all from us for now. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much, Adam, indeed. I appreciate that we've just run over the hour, and I truly apologise for that.